So welcome all. Good morning everyone. We will be covering the rest part of the selected products today. Yes, good morning. Akash, Jyoti, Mukesh, Preeti, Himani is there. Only Masud is missing as a regular student. Uh, so till now we have discussed about six selected products which we are exporting to other countries at a larger proportion. So now we will be moving to chemical goods. Chemical goods, it basically comprises of 5 or 6 segments. The major segments are petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, organic chemicals, inorganic chemicals, plastics. All those things comprise the chemical goods segment. But one interesting fact about chemical goods is that chemical industry is the largest consumer of its own products. It means some of the chemicals are manufactured to become the raw material of another chemical to be produced. So whatever chemicals are produced or processed, they are not exclusively meant for exporting because they can act as raw materials to produce another chemical, a new type of chemical, which is actually required to be exported. So it's an interesting fact. The chemical industry is its own largest consumer because the basic chemicals are converted into some downstream chemicals that are used for industrial applications. India, if we consider India, India's chemical industry is quite old, and by now it's the 12th or 13th, it has occupied 12th or 13th rank in the world. It has contributed, the Indian chemical industry has largely contributed to produce chemical fertilizers and pesticides, which actually contributed a lot to the Indian Green Revolution in the 60s and 70s. So let us move to the major sectors of chemical industry, which I just gave some hints about petrochemicals, about pharmaceuticals, about organic chemicals, about inorganic chemicals. We're just looking into that in somewhat detailed manner. Organic chemicals, those who are science students, they must be knowing some terms, some examples of organic chemicals. Organic chemicals, basically they are hydrocarbons, alcohols, aldehydes, carboxylic acids. So these are basically needed to act as raw materials for bulk organics and for your petrochemical industries, for your special chemicals. So organic chemicals is the first major sector, major segment of chemical goods which facilitates the production of other chemicals. Now let us move into petrochemicals because this is the largest segment in which India is exporting. In petrochemicals also, it is an interesting fact to note that India doesn't have adequate production of petroleum. We largely depend on other countries. Petroleum is imported and it occupies a huge portion of our importing total. But once the crude petroleum is imported, it is processed. After it is being processed, you get some byproducts like petrols, like diesels, like high-speed petrol, like kerosene, like mobile, everything. There are a lot of byproducts obtained from petrochemicals. Those products we export to other countries. Next, we can talk about bulk organics. As the word suggests, bulk. Bulk means in large number. So bulk organics, they are needed by several other segments of chemical industry to be utilized. So examples of bulk organics could be your acetone, your glycosin, acetic acid. These are the bulk organics which are to be produced on a large scale to facilitate the functioning of other chemical industries. Similarly, there is alcohol-based chemicals like acetaldehyde, like acetic acid, like ethyl acetate. You just hear the names, no need to remember everything. Alcohol-based chemicals, just one or two examples, acetaldehyde and acetic acid. Similarly, there is special chemicals. Special chemicals you can easily remember because they are used for a special purpose. That means all the adhesive, gums, all the adhesive. For cosmetics also, special chemicals are developed. For cleaning materials, for fragrances, all these come through specialty chemicals. Then there is one more segment which is also known as fine chemicals, very close to specialty chemicals. Fine chemicals contribute to add flavor, add fragrances. Fine chemicals also is used for photograph development. So these are the types of chemicals produced in the chemical goods segment. I just wanted to share it with you to have some ideas. Then we can actually move to the chapter, what are the growing responsibilities of India in this segment. Well, the responsibilities in India is to abide by the international law, international regulations, because you must be aware of chemical weapons also need chemicals to be supported with. So those chemicals are not to be produced if there is a restriction. Then for your chemical processing, you need some quality certificate like ISO certificate. Then also for chemical industries, it is the responsibility to care about the environment. So you must be conscious about the environment. In fact, the environmental issues are strictly implemented in the developed countries already. Still, they are not in implementation strictly in developing countries. That's why we are getting opportunity to manufacture some of the chemical goods and to export them to the developed countries. Once these terms and conditions apply strictly to Indian or to the developing countries, production of chemical goods in some segment will go down definitely. Till then, we have the privilege, we have the opportunity to earn some more in terms of foreign exchange. If you look at the export figure from India in terms of chemical goods, the maximum percentage is occupied by pharmaceutical sector, which comprises of pharmaceuticals, drugs, fine chemicals, followed by your intermediaries like color, dyes, by agrochemicals, all those things. Indian major markets, again you know, India's largest export partner is the USA, and it is more or less, in many cases, it is followed by the UK and other European countries. Only one interesting fact to remember, for cosmetics, in cosmetic segment, USA is the second largest importer from our country. in cosmetic segment, UAE is the largest importer for Indian goods. Now we can move to the avenues, means the way of progress and what are the future prospects, possibilities for India in these sectors. As we have already discussed, in the pharmaceutical category, if we produce at a large volume, it will give us a low cost of production, and for which we can earn, we can generate more revenues in terms of profit. The same holds good for plastics also, because for plastics, polyethylene, polypropylene, products like these are exported. Now it has amounted to more than $150 billion per year. Then we can move to inorganic bulk materials. We have prospects, we have opportunities in this segment. Inorganic bulk materials, I can give you example. Inorganic bulk material. Okay, caustic soda. Have you ever heard of caustic soda, which is used to wash clothes, which is used to wipe out the dirt from the clothes? Caustic soda. Then inorganic bulk chloride. You have another good example of sodium chloride, the salt you are using, at your dining table. So these are inorganic bulk materials in which we have the advantage of, we have the opportunity of exporting. Then your fine chemicals, as you know, are relatively sophisticated chemicals. So for fine chemicals, these things add flavor or fragrances to things. And in case of petrochemicals, yes, we have opportunity because we are setting up good plants by your Reliance Petrochemicals, by Indian Oil. The refineries, they are doing well, and the byproducts in petrochemicals are always in demand. So we have scopes and opportunities in that regard. If we capitalize on that, we will be able to earn more foreign currencies. So in order to achieve those, as we have discussed in other units, we have to know our advantages, we have to know our disadvantages. Because advantages we need to know to capitalize on it, and the disadvantages we need to know to minimize it. So let me give you an easier method to analyze the advantage of anything, of your organization, of yourself, of any particular product, or of any particular segment. Because you are in commerce, you will be coming across a term which is known as SWOT analysis. You might have done it before also. SWOT, all are in capital letters, and SWOT represents S for strength, W for weakness, O for opportunities, and T for threat. You must be knowing that.
Yes, sir.
Actually, yes, SWOT analysis, you should go into detail of SWOT analysis, because this is a common analysis for everything. When you are analyzing the prospect of a product, this is required. When you are analyzing an organization, this is also required. When you are making a new strategy, this is also required. So SWOT analysis is required even for you also. If you are going into a new venture, you must know your strength, you must know your weaknesses, and based on those strengths and weaknesses, you will have to encash the opportunities and to minimize the threats. So in this sector, if we consider Indian strength, the strength of India could be attributed to its experience, because it is already 60 years old in case of chemical goods industry. Now multinational companies are coming to invest in India, so with their technology we can produce better quality products and at a large scale. Again, because we are supported by some other uh, multinational companies with large fund, we can develop a very good research and development team. Above all, there is another factor, availability of raw materials. Um, that is an advantage for India. Availability of raw materials, I can give you some examples. Availability of raw materials like naphtha, like ethyl alcohol, they are plentifully available in India. And above all, you know, comparatively there is a low cost of labor, which always adds to the advantage of any industry in India. These are some of the strengths. Weaknesses, yes, weaknesses is that we have not developed that infrastructure to regularly be a friend, to regularly uh, to regularly obtain order from another country or another organization. You can term it as contract manufacturing. In a contract manufacturing, what happens? You always are in work because you have to execute an order, and this order continuously works for you, and every time you have to fulfill an order. That is contract manufacturing. So your production always your production process goes on. Your people, they always get work. So this so far have not happened in India for all the chemical industries, and those small industries which are not supported by any MNC or any special scheme or by any special scheme of the government, they are not into R&D, research and development, because research and development costs a lot. These two are the major weaknesses in this sector for India. Then opportunities, yes, opportunities are always growing because petrochemical byproducts of petroleum are always needed by most of the countries. So opportunity is there. We can set up more refinery. In some parts of the world, you can the market is not explored to that extent. If we improve on our capacity, we can cash on those territories. So opportunity is there prevailing in the world. We need to enhance the infrastructure in order to encash that. And threats will be always there because threats will come from the competitors. Whichever country gives more attention to this sector, they will emerge as your competitors. So threats always will remain there. But threat is not a negative term. Threat is there to make you more active. So never treat threat as a negative word. Let me give you an example. You must be aware of the sea animal shark. Shark, we know it's a deadly fish. It eats up the smaller fish. But actually what happens, the area in which the shark stays, because of the fear of that shark, all other fish, they stay always alert. So they are more lively, they are supposed to be more active to face any threat from the shark. In that regard, they stay fit and they stay alert always. Similarly, the competitors act in that way. If you get a good competitor, you cannot just relax. You cannot sit complacent with you. You will have to stay alert. You have to make yourself ready or fit enough to compete with your competitors. So it's a good sign. So with all those things, with the strength, to capitalize on the strength, to minimize the weakness, we can encash the opportunities and handle the threats so that our industry can make more revenue for the country, can earn more revenues for the country in terms of foreign currency. So with this, we come to the end of our physical products which we are exporting, and so far we have discussed 7 physical products from agriculture to chemical goods. There is one more thing which we are exporting, and the amount we earn for that export is growing year on year, and it will grow. It is assured to grow in the coming years also. And this is none other than the services. Services. It is different from physical goods, because services, you can avail some service, but it is intangible in nature. You cannot touch that service, only you have to realize. Services. A service basically means an activity you are doing for the benefit of someone else. In general, a service means an activity you are doing to give benefit to someone else. In terms of business, it is a bit modified. In terms of business, a service is an intangible activity which you are doing to give benefit to another party. The party which is availing the service expresses his willingness to exchange for your service, then it gets some monetary value. And in terms of business, every service is associated with a monetary value. So we can again redefine the definition of service. Service is an intangible activity done for the benefit of another party. If the party availing service expresses his willingness to make the exchange in terms of money, then the service gets monetary value. And if the party belongs to another country, then this service becomes an exported service and earns foreign currencies for a particular country. Peculiar thing about service is that it is intangible. That means you cannot touch it. Only you have to feel. Second interesting thing about service is that a service is consumed as soon as it is created, as soon as it is produced. Suppose you are ordering a cup of tea in a restaurant. So you are ordering to avail that service. Whenever the waiter serves you the tea, service is over and you start consuming the tea. Similarly, you want to repair your bike, you go to a garage. The mechanic gives you a service. Immediately after his service, your bike gets ready and you move on with your work. So service is produced and consumed simultaneously. Services cannot be stored for a person to be consumed a bit later. Services can be postponed, it cannot be stored. And another interesting thing about service is that if it is done manually, most of the services are designed and programmed manually, then in some cases it is performed by machines. Service rendered each time will not be equal to 100% like before. Whatever service you have availed this time will not be exactly the same in the next service. It will differ in a small, it may differ in a small percentage, but exactly same it will never happen. So now if you go deeper into services, you can divide the entire service sector into two segments. One is your factor services, and other one is non-factor services. What is factor service? Factor service means the service which is generated by using the factors of production. Factor services mean the services which are generated by using the factors of production. Which factors of production? Factors of production are generally considered land, labor, capital, and one more thing you can add, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship means the process of being an entrepreneur, the process through which someone undergoes to become an entrepreneur. The process, you cannot touch that process, but you can feel, yes, this fellow is doing well, he is doing some activities to build up an organization of his own. So these are factor services which are generated by using the factors of production. And another segment is there of services which is known as non-factor services. Non-factor services would be your banking services, would be your insurance services, would be your travels, would be your transport. All those things will be non-factorial services. So what should be the issues in international, what are supposed to be the issues in international trade in services? We'll be discussing that, but before that, I think I have been talking for the last 25 minutes at a stage. So I want to know whether whatever I have explained you so far, whether it is understood or not, or anyone having any doubt can ask me. Let me take a pause here. Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir. Understood, sir. No doubt.
Okay, so let us move ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what are supposed to be the issues in international trade in services? One thing is that services of trade, services it's subjected to, services are subjected to financial regulations in importing countries. Because suppose you are an expert in a certain field, a client in another country needs your consultancy, he wants to avail your service, but the regulation there prohibits you to give your consultancy in that service. So in that case, it acts as an obstacle. It acts as a hindrance to the service, because many countries have this provision for the service providers to have appropriate license in order to provide that, in order to render that service. So first, you can differentiate it well. Suppose you are a service provider, you have a client in a country, that country has already permitted you, you know that round the year I have continuous service follow-up to perform in that country, so you have obtained a license for that. Because you are a good service provider, another client in another country needs your consultancy. But for that small service, you are willing to do, but the second country is not permitting you to avail the service for its clients. So in that case, it becomes an obstacle. There are some rules and regulations which prohibits all service providers to render their service in different countries. Second problem could be, most of the foreign markets are efficiently served by a permanent service provider, with which organization they have already tied up knots. That means they have made an agreement with a service provider to provide all the services to them. So when the regulations are strict, as a new service provider, you cannot enter to that segment easily. So this is an obstacle. Third, you can conclude, you can assume that services can only be traded after a certain amount of interaction, after a long interaction takes place between the client and the service provider. Someone doesn't seek your service immediately just by listening to someone. It happens in rare cases. In most of the cases, if you are a commercial organization, if you want to render your service, you have to approach your clients. You have to tell them about your merits, your strengths, your good works, about your track record. Then only they will be satisfied and may take interest to avail service from you. So this takes a long negotiation also. So these long negotiations sometimes are satisfied, but sometimes they also don't succeed in getting consumers or customers or clients. In that case, there is one thing which is called immigration law. Immigration law means someone who is coming from abroad falls under this category. So the immigration law, in order to comply with the immigration law, for longer interaction with the clients, to create a client base, a service providing organization needs to make its presence felt in a country physically. They need to have an office. This is not possible for all the service providers because it needs money, it needs investment, and it needs some extra effort which are to be complied as per the regulation of that country. So these are the technical issues in international trade in services. These issues will persist. The organizations which are supposed to be bigger organizations will work on these issues. The smaller organizations will never look into it. Whatever orders they will be getting, temporary orders, they will be happy to execute those orders. Only the bigger organizations, they will need to comply with these technical issues. So now we will move to the part in which we will look at the export avenues of services. So avenues means, as you know, we have already discussed. Avenues means the way of progressing. So what is India's trend in exporting services? You can start with tourism. In fact, every country and every state within a country is trying to promote its beautiful and historical places to attract tourists. Excluding the current scenario in India, all states were doing well in attracting tourists. When number of tourists increases for a country or for a state and combinedly for a country, it facilitates some other associated industries. When number of tourists go up, the more accommodation will be needed and the hotel industry will also be benefited. When more persons will be accommodated in the hotel, of course the restaurants, they will be benefited. When more tourists start coming in, and if because they are coming to visit some of the beautiful and historical places, they will be needing transport. So automatically the transport sector, that means the travel sector, the travel services, they will be benefited. So you can assume that based on tourism, the travel services, the hospitality services, in terms of boarding, in terms of fooding, this will go up. So for India, these figures have improved a lot in the past few years, and of course after the crisis, this current crisis, tourism is tourism will be hampered to a great extent for coming 2 or 3 years. It will be it will be experienced by the entire world. But after that, India has already established itself in case of some good tourist locations to attract tourists. For the time being, it will be hampered, but for its future prospect is good. Tourism will generate good revenues for India. Then we can think about the construction and engineering services. Construction and engineering services means mainly you are availing the architectural services and the labor services. So in some cases, because India is a surplus country with labor, so in many countries opt for our labor service. Labor service in construction means for doing the concrete work, for doing they need our service as plumber, they need service as your mechanics for leather works. So for many purposes, they need construction purposes, they need labor service. Then if we consider transportation sector, then for transportation there is Indian shipping service, and till date most of the goods are transported through sea. Shipping service means to take consignment from you and to deliver it at the right place. So shipping could be done through air route, shipping could be done through sea route, shipping can also be done on road. So this is actually a service which is rendered. Most of you must be experiencing it in form of couriers, because you are ordering online many things, and they reach you through this transport service. Then one major service which is imported by many other countries is your software sector. Software sector is a major service sector for India, which is availed by many advanced countries. What happens in the case of software? There are two types. Let me give you an example. You must have heard of a term that is called outsourcing. Outsourcing basically means the organization will outsource some personnel through another agency. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are working in a bank, okay, or you are working in an big educational institute. So what happens? The bank will have its employees to uh, function, to have the daily activities done for a bank. But suppose the bank also needs a security guard. The bank also needs the ATMs to be filled with money. The bank also needs some staffs to recover their loan. So what happens in these cases? The bank, they don't want to recruit security guard as a bank employee. They give this botheration to another agency, negotiate with that agency that the bank will give this much amount to the agency per year. The recruitment responsibility will be borne by the agency with which the bank has tied up. That means bank's purpose will be solved, security guard will be recruited, but that security guard will not get salary from the bank directly. The security guard will get its salary from its recruiting agency, the security agency. So outsourcing basically means to get the work done, but not with a regular employee of the organization. So this outsourcing is also of two types. One is onshore, one is offshore. On SHORE, and the other one is OFF SHORE. Onshore and offshore. Onshore means you are outsourcing persons from your own country, from your native country. Offshore means you are outsourcing, you are getting the service of person from another country. What happens in case of IT and software? The organizations in developed countries, because their salaries are very high for IT professionals, they do offshore outsourcing. They negotiate with TCS or Infosys or Mindtree, organizations like that. They treat an assignment as a project. They negotiate that project for a certain amount, which is much less than the amount which they are supposed to spend if they will do it in their own country. Once they negotiate, TCS will appoint a team to carry out that project work. TCS will give salary to those employees who are associated with that project. And it is a calculation from the outsourcing agency, outer agency, that after giving the salary to these persons involved in the project, the organization will be getting some benefit. So it's a win-win situation. It becomes a win-win situation for everyone. For the original organization, it is beneficial. It costs less. For the outsourcing organization, for the organization which is giving the service, it also proves a beneficial. And the persons who are involved in that project, apart from their salary, they also get some project allowance. So that adds to their benefit. So this is offshore outsourcing, which is done nowadays very much for IT and software sector. Now, and all those things are conventional sector in which India is doing pretty well. In case of tourism, in case of transport, in case of software, in case of shipping. Now, if we consider at non-conventional services is somewhat related to your services which are not often availed frequently, like your super specialty hospital services. Super specialty hospital services means those hospitals hospitals which will be dealing with a particular disease much more efficiently than some of the general hospitals. India in this regard is not has not attended that prosperity.
Sir, examples of such type of hospitals?
Super specialty hospital means hospitals which will be having all modernized diagnostic centers for every detection of disease, and those equipments are very costly, and you cannot a super specialty hospital has all those facilities of diagnosing every type of disease with a modernized machine. So this is not that much available in India. So for setting up super specialty hospitals, sometimes some of the doctors who are acclaimed worldwide recognition are contacted in this regard to give their suggestion, to give their consultancy to set up. Otherwise, this doesn't. This offer doesn't come to any institution to set up super specialty hospital. Okay? Or is there any doubt?
Yes, no, sir.
Super means we have not got up to that stage to provide consultancy for setting up a super specialty hospital. Suppose abroad in a developed country, suppose if it is in UK, a super specialty hospital is going to be set up. Just mark my words. They will set up that super specialty hospital. Suppose for neurosurgery, suppose Dr. Ashok Mahapatra is a very big name. So they will need the consultancy of Dr. Mahapatra to guide them for the equipments, for the machineries, so that it will match up to the standard. So in that case, they are seeking consultancy from particular persons, expert persons in that regard. But no institutions in India is giving a suggestion or giving consultancy for setting up super specialty hospitals, because in India also super specialty hospitals are not set so far. Then non-conventional service will include your quality assurance services, like your ISO, like your BIS. Non-conventional services will include your printing services for publication of books, publication of articles. So those services sometimes are needed. Then other some maintenance services are there. Maintenance services normally denote the activity to keep the fixed assets in efficient operating conditions. So maintenance services are required for everyone, or it is required for individual, it is required for organizations, and in some particular maintenance services we are good. So other countries in which we have installed those machines, other countries in which they assume that we people can solve their maintenance problem, they need our help. And those are basically your repairing work, like your road repair, your aircraft repair, your ship repair, these type of things. Then the last part we can move to India's competitive advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, you know, labor cost, low labor cost, availability of labor, like it is applicable for all other products. Then competitive advantage is that you have some persons, you have the man resources, you have the HR resources which are somewhat artistic, who can give some artistic finishing to the services in some products. And third one is, in India itself, because we have a bigger domestic market, we ourselves also need services, and particularly these non-conventional services of maintenance. So in order to in order to meet the requirement of our people, many services in many service industry, they get established. So it is an opportunity for them if they perform well and if they build a good reputation for themselves. It becomes an opportunity for them to avail the benefit of giving service abroad. And disadvantage, like the other things, like the other sector, disadvantage is that we still lag in technology. We still don't use the sophisticated or modernized equipments to provide every type of service. Like our communication systems should be transparent, and our person, basically one disadvantage, one of the major disadvantages in this sector is that the persons, take the case of plumber, take the examples of plumbers, although they know the work, they are not that educated. So when certain technological changes take place, and if they are intimated in English to understand those changes, they will never go by that. So there is lack of transparent communication. So there should be a proper mechanism to communicate about the changes in technology, about the changes in the work process, which should be communicated to them on a regular basis, so that they will be more efficient, they will be more productive, because they are capable of doing that work. Only because they do not understand that language, they still work on the same principle which they have been doing for a longer time. If they are made aware of the new changes in their local language, in which they can understand, they can improvise themselves and perform better. So these are the products, physical products and intangible products like services. We are exporting and earning good revenues. In total, we have discussed 8 products. Now we can take a pause. Some of you can interact with me, ask their doubts, because after this we will be moving to the last block, in which we will be discussing about our main export partners with whom we are doing trading, like the USA, like the European Union, like the countries in the Middle East, like Japan. So we'll be discussing about all those countries now, not products. And this pattern will be the same for USA. The points will be covered, the same points will be covered for the European Union countries, the same points will be covered for Japan. But the contents of the points will differ somewhat. So that will be the structure. But now you can feel relaxed, because we have covered 4 blocks. And up to my satisfaction, we have covered it systematically. The minimum idea, whatever I know, I wanted to download it to you within this short span of time. And I think I have made you understand the basic of export to some extent. Now you can give your feedback. Hello, no one is in a mood to interact with me. Hello, Shivanand, kichi kuha. Shivani, you are totally silent today. Am I audible or not?
Yes, sir.
So Shivanand, कौन हला कौन feedback टिके दियो?
Sir, it was a very nice session. We can move forward.
So
It's a
I
very
can say
interesting. It's a very
interesting.
interesting point. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. But from the tone of Himani, I thought sir just carry on and finish. I am getting bored.
No, sir, it was not like that.
Actually, I need some interaction because it is also a bit monotonous. It becomes a bit monotonous for me to speak all the time, and it will also be very torture. It will be torture for
Sir,
you to continuously hear for a longer period of time.
I think you feel bored today without any interaction.
Yeah, up to some extent, it's true, Himani. It's true. I need energy in form of interaction.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we'll be moving to the last block. I'm only satisfied because I'm going as per the syllabus. I am satisfied because I have completed 4 blocks. So by tomorrow, I think we'll be completing the entire blocks with the, by covering the entire units. So that will give me an immense satisfaction. And also tomorrow you'll be asking your doubts because today we have almost 1 more hour left or 45 minutes left. I think one more nearly 50 minutes left, and I think we'll be covering 2 units today. So that only 3 units will be left for tomorrow, which will be we can cover at each and can clarify your doubts. So the fifth block, it is all about trade prospects of select markets. Previously, we were talking about selected products, the products which will generate more revenues for us in terms of foreign currencies in future. Now, we will be discussing about the future opportunities in select markets, means the countries in which we are supposed to sell our products. Of course, the first country, which is the largest trade partner with us, we will start with the USA. USA is the largest importer for Indian goods. Though it is the richest country, though it is the most advanced nation, it is assumed as the most advanced nation in the world. Still, then we have a trade surplus with the USA. We may be financially or by per capita income we may be lagging behind USA by a long way, but still then in terms of trade, balance of trade, we are at a surplus. We export more to USA than we import. So when we start talking about USA, some hints are there. The economic structure of USA. What does the economic structure of USA?
Sir, just a second. Sir,
Yes.
like if we do export, import, or the balance of payment or surplus or deficit, it is seen as specific product wise, specific country wise, or as a overall.
Now, when you are talking of balance of trade or balance of payment, it is an overall figure.
Okay.
If you want to subcategorize that, then you can find that in some of the products we are at surplus, and in some of the products we may be at negative deficit.
And like how we do the payment, like we uh, pay for each and every export to each and every country, or like each country for all the products we import and export, or what?
No, no. If look what happens, the country itself doesn't export much. The export is done through some organization, some industry, some sector. Okay, with the supervision of the government. Suppose, let me give you an example. Suppose India has to export 1000 units of your leather garment. leather jackets, 1000 units. So these 1000 units, suppose it cannot be provided by one organization. Okay. So the order is distributed among three organizations, three different organizations which are supposed to give you the required figure of 1000 jackets, 1000 leather garments combinedly. So account, it is exported to, suppose it is exported to America. Now the account for each organization will be different. But for the government as a whole, we have exported 1000 units, 1000 pieces. So that will carry a total amount. Now let us take the example of some importing goods. Importing will also be done for some other industries. For the government, it will be as a whole an importing figure. Now get my point. The accounts for export of different organizations will be settled differently. The importing figure for different organizations will be settled at the organization stage. But to the government, as a whole, the export figure will represent how much foreign currency we have earned or has come to the country, and as a total import figure, how much foreign currencies have gone out of the country. That particular figure matters for the government. Otherwise, import and exports are done by organizations, by institutions, by companies, by industries.
So we'll pay and get the amount into our personal account only, like the company.
Your business account, yes, your company account. But as a whole, the government looks at the total export figure, the total import figure, because all the export and imports are done within the knowledge of the government. Otherwise, it will be termed as smuggling. Okay. So that figure matters for the government. Otherwise, the organizations which are doing the export and import, they will get the benefit, or they will be paying the taxes, excise duty accordingly. Okay. So now for the USA, the most advanced country in the world. It is advanced because it has been liberated from the foreign dynasty for more than 250 years, 230 years. It got its independence in 1787. It's almost 230 years back. So they got more opportunity to do well, and actually they have performed very well. So economic structure is good. They are basically a capitalist country, but like India, actually India has adopted from their constitution, it stands on three pillars. One is your judiciary, one is your legislature, and one is your working executives, like India. And when you talk about recent economic developments, the recent economic developments in your book is given of 2005-6, which is not there. You can search in net for the latest developments apart from this current scenario. In fact, USA up to late 90s, after a steady progress, there was some deviations, there was some crisis. But after 1990s, in the 2000s, they again started to do well. And in fact, they are doing well, steadily well. That means they are maintaining their place, because they still remain as the world leader in case of pharmaceuticals and aerospace. Aerospace, that means the aviation industry, the passenger aircraft, the cargo aircrafts. 70% of the world's general aviation aircraft is supplied by USA. Aviation industry, as you know, aircrafts, they cost a lot. So we are focusing on the goods which are, let's say, we are focusing on goods which are of smaller value, and USA is importing those things from us. They are focusing on the manufacturing. They are focusing on the production of those elements, those goods, those materials, or those machines which are of very high cost. So, by selling one unit of this, suppose we take the example of a Boeing. If they sell one Boeing, the cost can accommodate more than 1 lakh units, more than 2 lakh units of leather garments. That means the price of 2 lakh leather garments will be equal to one Boeing. So in that way they do business. 70% of the aviation supply is done by America. And if you take the case of life-saving drugs and drugs for some serious disease, then 42% of that pharmaceutical market is also occupied by the USA. And apart from that, USA, as the special honor, USA has the blessings of God to have significant deposits of virtually every major minerals, whether it is aluminum, whether it is copper, whether it is petroleum, whether it is gold. They are blessed with that. They know how to capitalize on their resources with the use of technology. They use technology to get the best productivity. You will be astonished to know in America, if you consider the GDP means gross domestic product. For every country it counts. Gross domestic product means the total monetary value of goods and services produced in a country during a particular period, basically during a particular financial year. The total monetary value of goods and services produced within a country in a financial year. You will be astonished to know that the contribution of agriculture in the USA to the GDP is only 1%. Is only 1%. So you may be having an impression that only 1% contribution from agricultural sector, then it must be very low. But that amount is so huge, and you can relate it with the contribution of USA. USA provides 37% of the world's total maize requirement, maize production. 50% of the soya beans is alone produced by USA, and out of the total wheat exports, USA only accounts for 35% itself. So that 1% contribution of GDP, for USA it is very small, but for the world it is huge. And a fact is there, whatever we Indians produce from 1 acre of land, for the same patch of land, the Americans produce 8 times more than us. That is their technology. That is the optimal utilization of technology they have demonstrated. So economic development in the USA is basically driven by technology, and they focus on the optimal utilization of resources with the utilization of technology. Now foreign trade of USA, it is going year on year. For this year only, this will show a figure in negative growth. Otherwise, they are doing well. And if we consider the Indian economic reforms with USA, as you know, India's economic reforms started from 1991 when India was deep in crisis, didn't have sufficient foreign currency reserve. From 1991, we adopted the liberalized policy. We allowed other investors to invest in India. We allowed latest technology to be imported to India for its use. So after that 1991 phase, we are slowly going ahead. We are making an effort to match with the world economy, but still we lag much behind USA. But the trade between India and the US is going up every year, as I have already told that with the USA we are having a trade surplus situation. That means we are exporting more. So what are the things we export to USA in large number? The composition of exports mainly comprises of gems and jewelry, then ready-made garments, gems, jewelry, ready-made garments, then your cotton yarns, followed by some other things like transport equipments, like electronic goods. But the major thing exported are gems and jewelry, ready-made garments. Similarly, the major products which are imported from USA comprises of electronic goods, non-electrical machineries, organic chemicals, all those things. And year on year, this is going up. And what are the future prospects of Indo-US trade? Some points are there. After 1991, it has opened new doors. It has opened doors to new opportunities. Then we can, then one thing it is asked in the book, why, despite of all the opportunities, India is doing business, India is improving its business at a slow rate. The slow rate is can be mainly attributed to the old policies, the past policies. Prior to 1991, the policy focused on the indigenous products, development of indigenous products. So, in order to promote indigenous product, we also utilized indigenous technology. So, the infrastructure was quite outdated, and by the time we declared our economy to be liberalized, we adopted the liberalized technology. By that time, our technology, our infrastructure was quite outdated. So, to overcome that, it needs time. We are slowly making progress in that direction to adopt new technology, to renovate our infrastructure. But because it takes time, our growth in export has not gone up despite of the openings. And apart from that, there is one more point. America is getting into trade treaties with its neighboring countries. One is your NAFTA. NAFTA, you must have heard about NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. Whenever the term free trade comes, immediately get a picture in your mind that free trade means the countries or the members, the countries which are the members in the country are allowed to sell or purchase products from the member countries without giving any export or import duty. Free trade means the product from one country is allowed to be sold in another country without any extra excise duty or customs duty. So North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, it comprises of only three countries, the neighboring countries, America, Mexico and Canada. So when things are available, and these three are big countries, big countries. So when these three countries are allowed to sell and purchase their products within this, and combinedly the three countries make a big market, So most of their requirements are fulfilled by themselves. Only a small part of the requirement they need to import from countries like India, and that is one of the reasons also why India has not gone high up in the export ladder despite of the opportunities. So this is all about our American friend as far as export is concerned. Now we can move to the European Union. As you know, European Union, it was established in 1993. European Union started or founded with 6 countries initially: Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Italy, Netherlands, and Germany. Later on, many other countries from Europe joined. It grew up to 27 members. Recently, Britain exited from that. But the basic purpose of forming the European Union was that it will make an association of European countries so that they will have access to the market of other countries without giving any additional or without imposing any additional duty, government tax on the products. This actually created a very positive vibe among the countries. So slowly, European Union, which started with six countries, their common currency was euro. It gained value. It widely gained acclamation. Slowly they got into trade treaties with many other countries other than the European countries. They made treaties with the African countries. They made treaty with the Caribbean countries. Caribbean countries means those countries which are in between North America and South America. These countries are known as ACP countries. The African, Caribbean and Pacific countries are known as ACP countries. Basically, these countries are not that advanced. So they make treaties with an objective to procure raw materials from those countries at a cheaper rate. Then the European Union and European Free Trade Area, they formed an association in which new members like Iceland, Norway, they joined in. So they actually expanded their wings. They satisfied the purpose for which the organization was established, and in fact they are doing very well. So what is their relation, the European Union's relation with India? With India, they also signed an agreement in the same year 1993, just after their establishment. They were established in November and they signed the treaty in December in 1993 for diversifying trade, for investment, for economic cooperation. But actually, and India has got the opportunity to boost up its trade. But in reality, what happens? What will be the products, what will be the goods the European Union will be needing for? Let us take the examples of the things, of the goods which are exported from India to European Union. The top 5 items include ready-made garments, gems and jewelry, primary or semi-finished iron and steel, cotton fabrics, some traditional machineries and instruments. If we consider all these figures, in total, if we look at the figure in 2005-6 given in your book, combinedly it only accounted for $8,765 US million. And they imported almost the same amount, the things we imported from European Union. The top 5 elements which we export were garments, ready-made garments, gems and jewelry, semi-finished iron, and some traditional machineries and instruments. And the top 5 items we imported from European Union are pearls, precious stones, gold, electrical goods, organic chemicals, all those things we imported from them. But we can assume that India's trade with European Union day by day is getting into trade deficit. That means we are importing more from European Union rather than exporting to them. The major reason for that, the general implications for that is because European Union has spread its wing to 26 countries. Most of their requirement, most of the raw materials, most of the technologies they share with one another, and they avail the quality products at a lower rate. Only they import those things which are barely, which are barely needed for them, bare necessity for them, they only import those things. But because of their technology and quality product, they are able to get orders from other countries to export. So their export figure is gradually rising up and import figure is coming down. That's the main reason for which they actually are not dependent for everything and others. They need a very small portion of their requirement to be imported. So you can, the general implication, you can put it in words that the integration of a number of individual markets, a number of individual markets means a number of 26 markets, 26 countries, markets of 26 countries have come into integration into a single unified market which is regulated with a uniform policy and uniform set of standards and procedures are adopted with no restrictions on the movement of goods, services and capital. I am for the benefit of all of you, I am reciting it again, telling it again, the integration of a number of individual markets into a single market, first advantage for the European Union. Second advantage, that the market abides by a uniform policy with a uniform set of standard procedure. Third, there is no restrictions on the movement of goods, services, capital and labor within the region. So these three factors contribute a lot for the European Union to excel. For India, if we think it in a positive way, then what would be the opportunities for India to be availed? The opportunity for India will be, since these 26 countries have come together to make a unified market, India has got a bigger chance of acquiring a certain percentage of this big market. Because if one country, out of these 26 countries, if India will be able to sign up a deal of a particular thing to be imported to that country, then the same import will hold good for all the 26 countries. That means if India cracks through a deal for exporting something to a particular country, then that will be accepted by all the 26 countries, and that will be a big advantage for India, because initially if the deal would have been done with a single country, it would be a small order, but once you crack it through a country of the European Union, then gradually it will be a huge order and the opportunity will be large. Then if you analyze the products commodity wise, then in most of the things we just will have some knowledge whether they import it at large scale or they export it at large scale. We are talking about European Union, not India. Now we are focusing on European Union. Previously we were talking about the United States. So get the idea that whatever products are needed for European Union, they will import it from those countries which will be providing them those products at a lower cost with a better quality. This is a common assumption. Whatever order India was getting previously, may it be in case of textile, may it be case of cotton manufacturing, may it be case of leather, previously India was doing well. This is a general assumption. But gradually some other countries in Asia, and mostly the newly industrialized nations and China, they came up with better technology, they came up with a larger scale of production, so they were able to cater to the needs of the European Union at a competitive price and with a better quality product. So due to this reason, India is slowly giving up its market share to these countries. So for textile, it is going down because of the same reason. For cotton and manufacturing, same reasons also hold good. For leather and leather manufacturing, footwear, also the same reasons contribute. For gems and jewelry, we also import precious stones from European countries, European Union. And if you consider about the export of Indian product, then the largest percentage is occupied by diamond. India exports diamond in large number to the European countries, European Union. Now one question comes into mind: India doesn't have a diamond mine. How come India becomes the largest exporter of diamond to European Union?
So maybe
Again,
we are importing it from another country and directly exporting it to European nations.
yes, absolutely. And it will be very interesting to know that we are importing those raw diamonds from European Union also. Like we are importing it from some of the other countries in Africa, but we are also importing it from the European Union countries. India, why diamond? India has some very skilled diamond workers. And apart from the machine shape, some particular shapes to diamond can only be given by Indian artisans, diamond workers. That is the speciality of Indian diamond workers. So for that reason, those diamonds are developed from raw diamonds in India and are exported to different parts of the world. Now another segment in which India has the supremacy over many of the countries in Asia, that is the carpet. Till now, or if we consider all the export goods, carpet occupies the top position which India supplies to the European Union. Carpets are the highest share in the exporting of goods to European Union. They are artistic and they still have their appreciation prevailing in the European countries. Then for coffee, some agricultural products, we'll move to some agricultural products. Tea, coffee, spices, these have some, specifically tea and spices, they have their market, but coffee is losing its market to some of the other countries. Then for marine products, yes, someone wants to tell me something.
Sir, cashew nuts or the basic nuts also are exported.
Yes, that will come under that. Yes, yes, absolutely. Those things are coming under edible fruits and nuts. There is another segment for that. This is coffee, tea and spices fall into one segment, marine products another segment, edible fruits and nuts, they come under the category. Yes, cashew nuts. Cashew nuts are the only thing which is appreciated by all the countries in the world, processed cashew, not actually raw cashew, it is processed cashew. And Indian cashew nuts, cashew kernels, certainly bear a different taste which is appreciated by almost all the countries in the world. Now if we talk about marine products exported from India, marine products, exporting of marine products to European Union is slowly going down. Previously it was very good, but slowly it has given way to some other countries which are providing marine products to the European Union. Those countries may be your Norway, Iceland, Poland, countries like that. Only they import frozen shrimps, that means the tiger prawns. The tiger prawns are of high demand in European countries. Otherwise, other marine products, they are mostly exported to Japan from India. The European Union, they are now not importing more marine products in the forms of crabs, in forms of fish from India. They are importing it from other countries. So these are about the agricultural items. If you consider engineering goods, organic chemicals, a very small portion Indians are occupying in the total import of European Union. One thing India is doing well, that is rags. Rags mean worn clothes. Worn clothes means the clothes which are already used. Those, they can be called as scraps of clothes. They are exported to Europe in large number, but it doesn't have any value. It doesn't have much value. In fact, these are also exported from the African countries because these are processed to do something else in their countries. So this is all about the European Union and our trade with that. Only in case of carpet we are doing well. Our tiger prawn is doing well. Cashew nuts, diamond, all those things are doing well. Otherwise, in all other products, we would have occupied a significant market, significant percentage in export. Then there is another part, small part is there, which we will be completing. It will take 5 minutes or more. We will be winding up at 10:30 because today it seems like a long session. Then another part is there which is called CIS countries. So what is CIS? CIS means Commonwealth Independent States. Commonwealth Independent States, which got its acclamation in 1991. What happens previously, USSR, Russia, was named as USSR, Union Soviet Socialist Republic. It was a combination of, it was a country of 15 big states. Out of these 15 states, 11 states went out of the Union, Soviet Union, and they became independent. Russia became one country, and the other 11, they got out of the Union and became independent states. These 11 independent states combinedly are known as Commonwealth of Independent States. And because you know why these 11 states they went out of the Union of Soviet, because they felt somewhat they were deprived, they were not given adequate facility to excel, they were not given the basic infrastructure for people to work on. So when they got their independence in 1991, so now it is even less than for 30 years. So basically they are not that advanced countries. Then if they are not advanced countries, why we take CIS, these Commonwealth independent countries into consideration? Because these countries also exist in Europe also. Some of these countries, they also exist in Europe. The basic reason we take these countries into consideration is that because they are not developed, we have an opportunity to serve to their needs, to cater to their needs, because our products, our services are supposed to be superior with respect to their products and services, because they are not that much advanced and not that economically prosperous. So if we consider India's trade relation with these Commonwealth independent states, then it is also gradually improving. But in the year 2004 onwards, from the year 2004 onwards, it drastically went down. For the initial years, the trade balance was in positive, but from 2004-05, it went down into a negative figure drastically. So what could be the reasons? The reason could be attributed to the development in those countries with the help of some of the advanced nations in Europe, with some of the advanced technology rendered by the developed nations to these countries. The main commodities which were exported by India to these countries are pharmaceuticals and drugs, ready-made garments, and tea, coffee, tobacco, transport equipments. And the major items which were imported by India from this region, this CIS region, or fertilizers, inorganic chemicals, iron and steel. But slowly they capitalize on these CIS countries, they capitalize on their exports, which we could not do on our export, and the figure went into trade deficit. So what could be the challenges for India? The challenges for India would be to match with the requirement of the people of those countries, to provide them with the best of the products at an affordable rate, and opportunity will be considered as combinedly these countries have a bigger market to be served. We have more opportunities to expand on our export. So I think this much for today. If anyone having any doubt can ask me. And for today, for me it looked as a very long session, but I'm happy that we are into block 5 and we have already covered 2 small units. Tomorrow we'll be discussing about our relations with Japan, with the Middle East countries, with the SAARC countries, and very timely and satisfactorily I think we will be able to complete the entire paper. Please be with your doubts for tomorrow, so that we'll be having some time to discuss along on the lines of your doubts.
Sir,
Sir, tomorrow
sir,
we
Yes.
will be discussing the assignment also.
Which segment?
sir, our country exports spices for the European country is not
Yes.
satisfactory. That not
No,
export.
it has gone down. It is not satisfactory now. It has gone down.
Sir, spices.
Now we are
Sir, spices are exported by European country large scale, but now is declining stage.
Because they don't prefer spices now. Previously
Yes.
spices were of prime importance. Spices, Sivanand,
Yes,
our spices ಅಲ್ಲ ಕೊಳೆಚೋ ಗುಜರಾತಿ
Labanga.
ತಮ್ಮ daalchini ಲವಂಗ ಇಷ್ಟು ଜିନିଷ
Yes, sir.
the things were of prime demand at that time. Now they are losing interest in that. They have developed a different taste. What to do with that?
Yes, sir. That is the reason, sir, export is declining.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Then who else, if you want to ask me something, can ask. I have 3 or 4 minutes to interact
what
with
was
you.
the reason behind the decline in export?
In which segment?
The spice and spices.
Well, it is a general assumption in for all the products, applicable for all the products, that whenever there is whenever the demand is declining, there must be 2 reasons. One reason is that the customers or the consumers who were using this product previously have changed their taste to some extent. They are not simply preferring these products for further use. And second reason might be the compromise in quality, which is not accepted by the consumers. These are the basic 2 reasons for which exports go down. In case of spices, well, some days back, you may have preferred ice cream of vanilla flavor. After some days, you develop your preference for butterscotch. So there is no fault to the vanilla flavor or the company which is manufacturing the vanilla flavor. It is up to you. You developed your taste. You preferred butterscotch more than vanilla. So in that case, butterscotch will be more consumed than vanilla. Okay, so the consumer has an habit of changing taste. That is one reason. Second reason is that why you are preferring butterscotch of Amul or butterscotch of vanilla to Celeste. because quality wise, Vagilar tastes better than Celesti. So second reason is of quality. If they will be getting good quality spices from other countries in Asia, they will be ordering them more than India. So these are the basic two reasons for which exports go down, and in particularly in case of spices. Got it, Himani?
Yes, sir. Sir, tomorrow we will be
Okay.
discussing the assignment also.
If you have any question in assignment, you can ask me tomorrow. No
Okay,
issue
okay,
in
sir.
that. I think in the first during the first within 1.5 hours we will be completing the entire book, and thereafter we can have some discussion on the assignments, on the doubtful questions, or how to write those questions. The basic format we will be discussing on that. No issue in that. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So all of you, thank you very much for being with me for the last 2 hours. Thank you so much, and see
Thank you,
you
sir.
again. Talk to
Thank
you
you, sir.
again tomorrow
Thank you,
at
sir.
the same time.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Most
Thank you, sir.
thank you. Most welcome.
Hello, hello, sir. Hello.